Well. Uh. Well, man, this fan is making way too much noise on my microphone. Okay, let me present. This is what happens when I start talking about the Darley case again. You always get like one or two supporters that want to bring up my son and his case. So I'm going to play this and then I'll respond to it. Because I know that most everybody that's watching me right now, they know my son's case. They know because I had it all on here. and they know exactly how it went and how it happened. I had the whole trial on here and everything else. But let me just present this for a minute. This is a friend of Danelle Stall's, who is Darley Routier's sister. This is how they stick up for Darley. So let's just see. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Now watch how wrong she gets this. But this is someone that supports Darley, knows Darley's innocent, right? So let me get a little volume here. Let me get a big screen going on.
Did. And was gone from about 8 a.m. to about 10:30.
Let's do it this way.
St. John was babysitting his girlfriend's son while she took care of a traffic ticket, as I stated, and was gone from about 8 a.m. to about 10:30 a.m. that morning. She came home and found Braden in bed, looking halfway asleep. She put a movie on for him, not knowing that her baby had most likely already passed.
She left the house at 7:30. She had to pay a traffic ticket. Okay, and then she got home about 10:15. Okay, she's not telling the story the correct way, but she's almost there. Let's see here.
Bed, looking halfway asleep. She put a movie on for him, not knowing that her baby had most likely already passed from the violent beating that Luke St. John had dealt him that morning. Kelsey then, so she puts on a movie for Braden, thinking that, oh, he must still be tired.
She put on the movie for Braden right before they got in the shower.
He's a 2-year-old. So, you know, my 2-year-old was done taking naps. If he would have been in bed at 10 a.m., I would have thought that there would have been something more to that. Like, is my child sick? You know, what's going on here? But at any rate, she did put a movie on for him, checked on him, and she gets in the shower, and then they smoke some.
And when she got home, she did look in on Braden, and she said he appeared to be daydreaming. Then they decided to sit for 2 hours and watch a movie and smoke weed together. Then they got up and looked. She looked at him again, and they got in the shower and had sex in the shower. Then when she got out, that's when she looked in at Braden and saw that his lips were turning blue. But we'll let her continue.
Marijuana and watch a movie themselves. So about 1 p.m. she goes in to check on Braden again, and this time he's blue and he is not breathing. And my question is if Luke had killed him that morning, Luke is just watching a movie with his girlfriend and like smoking weed, knowing that he had just beaten them.
Yeah, the weed that they were smoking, that was weed that Luke sold to provide them with an apartment with. And Kelsey had no problem with that either.
This child to death in the room next door, I mean, that's truly sick.
It is truly sick. I would have to agree with that. It is definitely very sick. It's sick when anybody kills a child. And it doesn't matter if I'm related to them or not. It's sick when anybody kills a child. It's also sick when they spray silly string over the graves of children that they've killed. That's sick too.
So, Kelsey Martin, Kelsey.
Oh, and take a look at Kelsey Martin's track record today. She's lost another child. She's up on counts of cocaine trafficking. 21 counts right now. But she's still a victim in this case. But I'm saying nobody's perfect.
Called the police. She answered and participated in the line of questioning that the police had for her.
When they found that Braden wasn't able to breathe, my daughter-in-law Janie lived right across the street, and she came over to the house, and my ex-wife lived across the street, and they came over to the house, and they were performing CPR on Braden while Kelsey just sat there. She didn't touch him.
And eventually, like I said, the medical examiner narrowed down the time of death to where Kelsey would have been at the courtroom that morning. So not only...
The medical examiner did not narrow it down to that timeline, but what they did was, both we had a state's expert and we had our own expert, and what they said was that Luke said that Braden was speaking to him while Kelsey was gone, and they just flat out said there's just no way he could have been speaking to anybody after that. But it wasn't about a timeline. It wasn't really about a timeline.
Only was Luke St.John indicted on charges of the...
Now listen to this. This is borderline slanderous here, but I'll clear it up too.
The manslaughter of this child. He was also charged with felonious assault and involuntary manslaughter and endangerment of a child. A blunt force object is believed to have bashed this child.
And see that for her to say that they thought that Luke used a weapon on him. No, they knew he didn't use it. But what they did was they described the extent of his injury to the back of his skull as if he was hit with a blunt force object, or was in a car crash, or was dropped from a 3-story building. That's the way they said it. But they know that there was no weapon used on him. And they put a multitude of charges on him. Actually, they had him charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of felony. They doubled everything up, but because they need one to stick. That's how it works.
Child's skull in and created a large skull fracture, which is what ultimately incapacitated him. It took the jury 3.5 hours to reach a guilty verdict in this crime. Not only had St. John done this before...
She said he had done this before, he was accused of it. But she said he'd done this before. What she doesn't realize is that people's already seen in the 2015 incident. The reason that Luke wasn't charged with it is because, for one, they were also looking at a family member of Kelsey's, right? And Kelsey and Luke's statements were both that Braden had crawled up over his crib and fell out onto the floor. He fell out of the crib. Even Kelsey said so. I've got the paperwork. So you can't sit there and say he's done this before. But see, this is a Darley supporter, and they tell us, yeah, hey, Christy, they tell us, don't listen to the media. The media gets it all wrong. And what she's reading out of is right out of the Dayton Daily News report. Right? If she would have dug into the case, she would know that in 2015, Kelsey spoke up for Luke. Kelsey spoke up for Luke and said that the baby fell out of the crib. But even due to that, right? Even due to that incident, Children's Services did get involved. And they should have. So Children's Services weren't sure if Kelsey was lying for Luke or not. Right? So they just put an order on on Kelsey that she could not have Braden around Luke. That was the order. And I've got a copy of this too before you go talking cases. So the order was that Brady could nowhere ever be around Luke. Even though there were no charges, that's what Children's Services put. So she keeps saying he was babysitting. He was babysitting. No, Luke lived there. And Children's Services knew he lived there. The day that protection order for Luke to stay away from Braden ended on the day that Braden died. Kelsey would go to work at McDonald's. Luke would stay home and sling weed with Braden every day, all the time. So that order was in place. She wasn't supposed to, and it's not an excuse, but it is kind of negligent if you have an order to keep your child away from someone and you bring that child around them again, and then that person hurts the child. The caseworker in that name, the CPS caseworker that put the order on Kelsey to keep Luke away from Braden, is also the same caseworker named James Taylor. If you look up the case of Michelle Mooty, Mooty, here in Dayton, Ohio, he was also the one that put an order on her to keep her boyfriend away from her son, Levi. And she didn't keep her son away from this man who killed the little boy. And since she violated that order that CPS put on her, Michelle Mooty got 12 years in prison because they violated the order. But Kelsey got nothing. And I'm going to tell you why Kelsey got nothing. Because Children's Services knew that Luke was living in that house. Because I had been over there when they popped in. Hey, Luke, they seen him. They knew he was in there. Now, I'm going to let her talk some more. Because, this is a Darley supporter. Okay? This is a Darley supporter. She had all but 5 minutes to look at my case, and she's going to spit out what she knows about my son, all while trying to tell us how innocent Darley is. And she gets this case wrong. Mystery Maverick did the same thing. She got my son's case wrong, but they're supporting Darley.
As he had previously been investigated for meeting a child, but the worker that was in charge of keeping these children safe, like the CPS worker, was also brought up on her own set of charges. And
really, Sully? Really? You're saying that a CPS worker was brought up on charges and convicted in this case, and you think Darley's innocent? I'm going to tell you now, there was no CPS worker that was brought up on charges. The reason that Kelsey did not get brought up on charges is because CPS knew he was there, but none of them got brought up on charges. They flat lied to me and told me there was no order to keep my son away. But I got my hands on it and posted it here on YouTube for everybody to see. This is misinformation. So if you're spreading it in this case, could you possibly be spreading it in Darley's as well?
Received punishment for this crime. So the prosecutor in closing statement stated, quote, "Child abuse is a crime that is committed in secret. It's not meant to have witnesses." The prosecutor added, "But you have heard Braden's voice in this case, and it says Luke is guilty." A second medical examiner was brought in by the prosecution. So not only was the Ohio medical examiner brought in, but another medical examiner from Florida confirmed the findings of the first medical examiner. And
actually, the one that was brought in from Florida was on the defense side. And what he said was he told the truth. The truth was Luke said that Braden was speaking to him. Both of these medical examiners agreed that Braden would not have been able to speak with that extent of injury. So I am glad that even though it was our witness for the defense, that he told the truth. He told the truth. he would not have been able to speak. And that was something that I didn't even know. When I went down there and I saw his interrogation tapes, and I had it all on YouTube here, and the reason that some of that YouTube channel is gone now is because Darlie supporters used someone to come after me, and that's what happened. But I had it all here. It was all here. But anyways, I'm going to let her go a little bit more. And I'd love for Sully to come up and discuss this case with me, since she's brought it up. And then we can discuss the Darlie case too. But since she's brought it up, let's do this. See, because what you're going to do is you're going to let us non-supporters know that you don't research anything before you start flapping your mouth. Because everybody that's in this room, or everybody that's going to watch this, they know my son's case. And they know exactly what happened. And they know that you're getting it wrong already. So could you be getting it wrong about Darlie? And if you want to talk about, okay, so there's a non-supporter who has a child killer in his family. Well, we also have a supporter that is a child killer supporting Darlie. Lisa Lamb Fanska in Morgantown, West Virginia. So if we want to throw tic-tac about the character of the messenger, there's a child killer that supports Darlie, that let her baby roll into a lake and drown. But let's listen to some more.
That only pointed the finger at one person, and that was Luke St. John. Kelsey, like I said, was alibied during the time of death. And when Kelsey arrived home, she's the one that called in the crime. She answered the police question.
Actually, Kelsey called across the street. Janie called 911, and then Kelsey called him again. But Kelsey called across the street where my family was.
No, she didn't.
She rode in the hospital. She rode in the ambulance to the hospital with.
Oh, and what did she do before she rode into the hospital in the ambulance? She went back. She got out of the ambulance, went back inside to get her purse and her phone, and gave Luke a kiss.
Her child. However, while Kelsey is dealing with this, Luke has been cowering and hiding in the shadows. He's found to have gone and was hiding in his brother's closet.
His brother's closet. Well, this is somebody that supports Darlie. Okay, my son first came to my house because we all lived in the same neighborhood. He came to my house. I wanted to see what was going on, and I didn't want to around my other ones. So he was hiding out in the neighborhood, right? There was never a warrant out for his arrest. But anyways, my Luke goes up to my other son's house, like she's talking about here, and he's just in there. And they know he's in there, but they're not able to get a warrant yet. So I walk up to the scene, and I knew he's up there too. And I say, hey, I'm Mr. St. John. I understand that you want to talk to my son, blah, blah, blah. And this cop turns around and starts right on me right off the rip. And my deal was to get him down there so he could go, he's got to face the music. But this cop turns around on me. Oh, yeah, we know he's up there, and we know that you've got kids, and we're going to take your kids and children's services, and you're harboring a fugitive, and blah, 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 blah. And I say, hey, man, this is why the public doesn't like to talk to police. I came to help. And I started to walk away, and then I became sir. I was sir then, after I walked away. And he said, no, we're all kind of frustrated here. And I turned around and said, well, warrants do wonders. I said, you can sit here till 7 o'clock in the morning then. Then he calmed down and started talking to me. I said, look, I will go up there, and I will get him to come down, and there won't be a big scene around here, and you won't have to wait for a warrant. And I did. I went up the stairs. It was 3 stories up. The cops were right downstairs. And my son was in there with Janie, and there was a couple kids up there. Everybody was freaking out in there. And I pulled a cigarette out of my pocket, and I handed it to my son Luke, and I lit it. I said, you're going to smoke that cigarette, and then when you're done with it, you're going to walk downstairs to those police, or I'm going to let them in here. And that's exactly what he did. He got down to the end of the thing, he told me how scared he was. I said, well, you got to face the music. And I walked him down to the police car, and then they took him. He was never arrested. He wasn't arrested. There was no warrant. He was scared to talk to them. So that's how that happened. I was a witness for the state. But let's let her talk some more.
While police are trying to catch up with him. And while awaiting trial, Luke St. John told a cellmate that he regretted talking about this case over the phone, and
he never told a cellmate that he regretted talking about this case over the phone. He told my other son over the phone that he wished he would have never talked about this case to anybody in there. And that's in the transcripts. That's what was said, because they used the jailhouse snitch to get at him. And this jailhouse snitch told the courts that Luke admitted to doing it and all that. But I have the jailhouse snitch's Facebook where I'm talking to him, Dustin Middleton, where I'm talking to him on Facebook, and he's saying that never happened, that they were talking about how Kelsey did it. But here's the bottom line on that whole jailhouse snitch thing. When Dustin Middleton came in there to testify, the inmate, when he came in there to testify with Luke, he was wearing his jail blues. And right after court, he was released. But at any rate, that's not here nor there. Luke did it, so it doesn't matter if there is something like that. But I'm just trying to say I know how the courts work. We had a couple different things that we could have. What if there was a tornado drill during Darley's trial, and everybody was evacuated, and the jurors mingled with the prosecution, and everybody was mingling together, and they all go to a fallout shelter downstairs, and they're all sitting there mingling? Because that happened in our case. And I'm gonna tell you, it's like Tracy said today over on RJP's, that I can't prove that. She's absolutely right, because none of that is in the transcripts where the tornado drill came. The only way I can prove that is all the people that left the courtroom, even the judge. We all had to go down 4 flights of stairs, and the jurors were walking right with us. That should have been a mistrial, right? But would I feel good saying, yeah, my son killed that baby, but it was a mistrial because they didn't follow court procedure, so he's out. Ha, ha, ha. No, I wouldn't. I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that. So let's listen some more.
In prison, because hello, Luke, do you not realize that they listen to your conversations on prison at literally states?
Hello, Darley, do you not realize that they read your mail? And you know what happened in that house? Isn't that illegal to read our mail in the courthouse? Isn't that illegal? How did you get a hold of that? Isn't that illegal? No, but what my son was talking about on that phone call, he was talking to my older son, Zach, about talking to Dustin Middleton. And he said, man, I wish I would have never talked to anybody about this case in here. And this is all in the trial transcripts. If I have to go down and get them, I can do that. Doesn't she know? And look, she's going to put up this unflattering picture of my son. But we're going to keep going.
At the beginning of every call. Anyways, during sentencing, St. John asked not to be imprisoned at the same prison that the child's biological father was serving.
And during the trial, after they sentenced him, I went up to Luke's lawyer and I said, hey, can you be sure that they do not send him to the same penitentiary with Daryl, with Braden's father, Daryl, right? Because Luke had already beat him up twice. He just didn't need any trouble in prison, you know? Yeah, Luke, so I asked that. Luke did not ask that. I asked that. And Luke didn't know I was going to ask that. Hi, Jenny. This is a Darley supporter, y'all. And Pam, I know that you know Luke's case very well too, and you know that what I'm talking about.
Time at. He was sentenced to 18 years to life, having already served 442 consecutive days. So St. John, Luke St. John could be walking free before Braden would have ever even had the chance to finish college. Now, Kelsey is stating.
Now, I tell you, I don't believe that they're ever going to parole him. I believe that he's going to stay in there. And I'm okay with that. If that's what they say. My dog was just, hey!
Yumi, come here.
My corgi's blowing a coat. I believe he's lucky he didn't get the death penalty. But we'll talk about the differences in that.
As quoted as stating, he got what he deserved. However, did he? Because St. John's father is a major proponent for the guilt of Darlie Routier.
And before my son committed this crime, I was also a major component for the non-support of Darlie Routier. His innocence before he did this. And there were other cases too that I looked at and was really into. You know, like Halo Stutzman, Cooper Harris, Hannah Overton, lots of them. That's what I was doing on here, was true crime. And then my son does it, right? So, the Darlie supporters just love that, didn't they? They just love that. I even had other Darlie supporters that were coming to me that didn't like me, and they were, after this all became big news, that were coming to me and said, "Man," he said, they have a secret group about you, and they started sharing. This other supporter started sharing some of the stuff that they were saying. It's like, "Oh man, we can get him now. Oh, we got him. Ha ha ha. How's that?" A whole bunch of that. They thought it was funny that a child lost his life, and they thought it was a way to exact revenge on me for moving away from the support of Darlie Routier. Because when I supported Darlie Routier, I was just as vigorous, but I just didn't have as much to stand on in support. You can only get so far with support before you realize it's shit.
In her case. And so I wonder, and he was a non-supporter of Darlie for quite a long time and has a lot to say about the schmeth of her two children.
I had a lot to say about the death. Not schmeth. This is not funny. Two children. I had a lot to say about that before this happened.
And so I wonder why he's so loud when his child committed the same crime and has been found absolutely guilty without an appeal.
Oh, I was absolutely loud before that happened. See, here's the thing. I don't like baby killers. I don't like them. I don't like anybody that hurts a child. But I'm a parent to someone that's done that. So you put yourself in my position. I'm going to tell you, I've only seen my son once this year. I've sent him a total of about $30. I don't receive phone calls from my son. His mother does. I'm not out here saying that everybody else is fucking crazy because he's innocent. I'm not out here saying that the district attorney cast a spell on all these people that lasted 27 years. The very first post that I made about this case was about how guilty he was. I know he's guilty. And I think more of Braden Ferguson than I do his freedom. Which is what some people ought to do when they're coming up with bullshit about Devin and Damon and Darlie. They need to think a little bit more about Devin and Damon than they do Darlie. Why are their names not mentioned as much anymore? Because they're dead and gone and they're forgotten by a lot of supporters. Braden Ferguson will never be forgotten by me. Never. Sometimes I sit and look at his picture. I know it sucks. And I know my son is a piece of shit for doing what he did. But he's my son. And I wouldn't be any type of dad if I just refused to talk to him again.
Also, is it really fair that we know for a fact that St. John murdered these two boys, yet we're not sure of the guilt of Darlie? And she's going to be sitting in death row while St. John...
Well, the court said my son did it, right? And that's why you're sure of it, right? One media article, and you're sure of it, right? You know without a doubt, right? Well, we've known without a doubt for 27 fucking years. You just found this out today, probably the day before.
Could go on to have another child? What is going on with this? Do we just, as a...
I don't know. What is going on with this? Tex Watson has been married and had 4 children. You tell me what's going on with it. Different laws in different states. That's what's going on with it.
Society not see men as dangerous as women? Or does it just mess with the psyche that a woman would be capable of killing her own child? At any rate, St. John is among the regular prison population, not sitting in a bleak and hopeless death row cell such as Darlie.
Yeah, because in Texas, the law is a child under 5 is a death penalty case. Especially when weapons are involved. There's no weapon involved in my son's case. And it was Darlie's mitigating factors that helped her get the death penalty. They felt like that since she was such a skilled liar and that she could sit on that stand and call Toby Shook a liar, liar, while a picture of her 2 boys were facing right at her and showed no emotion. They felt, the jury had that placed. The jury had that picture put there. They wanted to see some reaction out of her, some remorse out of her, and they didn't see it. All she was worried about is liar, liar, and where'd you get those letters? No emotion.
The sentencing for men who kill children is different. And you can go listen to...
It's different in different states. They knew, okay, I asked them about the death penalty case. I asked him, was it death penalty, the lead investigator. And she said, no, in this case it's not. And you're very fortunate. And that's where she left it. And I think that they felt like it was a loss of temper. And then it was too late. It was because Luke was never violent to anybody. See, they keep saying that Darlie never did this and Darlie never did that, and people loved her and all that, and I can understand that. And it could be true, because Luke was real quiet. Braden called him daddy. They loved each other. And Kelsey said in court that Luke had never put his hands on her. He had never put his hands on Braden before. So there goes your investigating it, and it got thrown out because she said it on the stand that he never did it. And he in my opinion, he lost his temper and he was too rough, and it ended up in a death. And if Luke would have took the deals that he was offered, his sentence would be halfway over. But he just never wanted to admit that he could do that. And to this day, we don't talk about it anymore. We had a big argument about it when I went to see him. He was trying to throw that innocent at me. I'm innocent, and I just didn't want to hear it because I knew better. And I told him, I said, do you want me to come to this prison wearing a Justice for Braden shirt? I said, I came here to visit you. You're in here. You deserve to be in here. And I don't want to talk about the case here no more with you. And my other son got mad at me. We all got in a big argument right there at the visit. I said, we're not talking about the case. He deserves to be here. And that was the quietest ride home that I had ever had. But by the end of the ride, we all knew. He did it. He didn't mean it. And he should have owned up to it in the first place. That's what I take on it. But keep going.
To a few cases about this on our podcast, Kitchen Table Research. And if you already haven't listened, we do have a 2-part series on women on death row while you wait for our Christmas special to come out. But But at any rate, I would like this to open up a discussion and let me know how you would compare the Luke St. John case to the Darlie Routier case.
Well, one comparison is that the family's not out here trying to make him seem innocent. At first, I had a little bit of doubt because he was telling us he didn't do it. But we're not out here making jokes about law enforcement, even though CPS did drop the ball on him. Because if Braden got 100% justice in this, then Kelsey would have got some time too, just like Mary Muti did. Because she was ordered to keep him away from him. Apparently the professionals saw something that none of us saw. Also in the articles, they asked me, the Dayton Daily News, when they came to interview, they asked me, who do you think dropped the ball in this case? And I said, well, Kelsey dropped the ball, Luke dropped the ball, the police dropped the ball, CPS dropped the ball, and everybody that knew Braden dropped the ball. Because he wasn't supposed to be there, and we all knew he was supposed to be there. We all knew he wasn't supposed to be in that house. But they were getting along. We didn't see any fighting. Didn't see anything. Kelsey today has 21 charges of trafficking in cocaine. This is the second time that she's been charged this way. She has a little girl that she lost to her brother. Tyler got him. So, I unfortunately, Braden probably wouldn't have had a very good way to go. Bless his heart.
I'm going to move in a second, and here's a picture of the lovely Luke St. John. He looks like a real stand-up guy.
Now, I could put pictures of Silly String up and everything else. I'll put some other pictures up, but that's after 2 days of him freaking out about what he did. No shower, no nothing. Now, we can put up funny pictures of Darlie. We can put up funny pictures of Darlie Key. We can do that.
Doesn't he? At any rate, I want to wish you guys all a Merry Christmas. You can follow me here at my new channel. We made it to Miami. It's overcast, but I am glad to be with my family and not sitting inside.
So, all right, let me just end her. So I really would. Did this woman say that your son had also been involved in another? Yes, she did. She did say that. Yeah, she did say that. And he was accused before with the same child. But so was another family member. And the person that stuck up for Luke was the child's mother herself. Said he fell out of the crib. But see, a lot of what happens is, like if I get into these cases and people find out, because it was national news what my son did, they try to put this off on to me as if who do I think I am, blah blah blah, because my son did the same thing. Well, my son was grown. We don't blame Darlie Key, and in the past I had said some shit about her parenting, before my son. I had said some things. I think there were some things in Darlie's life that could have led her to do what she did. They don't want to speak about the sexual molestation that went on with Dennis Stahl and how her mother didn't believe her and how she resented her mother. They don't want to get into that at all. And they say that that's irrelevant, but it's not irrelevant. Just like, drug use wouldn't be irrelevant in Luke's case. It's not irrelevant. But they don't want to touch on that. So what I want to do is, Sully said, let's open a discussion about this case. Well, I'd like to see if Sully can have the discussion with me about this case and then about Darlie's case and maybe some other cases too. Because I am not that person for her. Everybody's already seen everybody that's probably going to watch this has already seen my son's trial. They already know the whole ins and outs. It's not like it's some big deal. But let's talk about Lisa Lamfanska. Let's talk about Dean. Let's talk about David Moffat. You know, some of the people that support Darlie. Let's talk about that one police officer that was also a child molester. You know, so it doesn't matter what these people, their past is. It doesn't matter where they come from. As long as they're telling facts about the case. It wouldn't matter if I was Charles Manson's son. If I'm speaking facts about Darlie's case, you know, because if you don't want Luke out, then we don't want Darlie out. And Luke don't deserve to be out. I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't trust that. But anytime Sully wants to come speak to me, then you can come speak to me. But Sully, I've studied this case before I put my ass out there to look stupid. I studied this case. You didn't even study that case. When you said a CPS worker was convicted. Oh, you didn't know? Well, most of the Darlie supporters know about it, Christy. I stepped out, and then when I stepped out, you stepped in. Yeah. But I wasn't out here. I had the whole trial up. And the Darlie supporters... No, Luke's never admitted to it. The closest I got Luke to admit to it is I was talking to him one time, and he said, well, Dad, maybe I should have just told the truth in the first place. He said, can't I go back and just tell the truth and they'll lessen my sentence? I said, no, it's too late. That's the closest, and that's the closest I got him. But he knows that I know. I don't go to visit him to talk about the case. That's still my son. And again, I can tell you that there was a tornado that came through the city while the court was in process. And the power went out in the courthouse. So the tornado lights come on. And then everybody that's in the jury box and everybody just mingled together to get out one door. And I was walking right next to jurors. Right? That there really could be a mistrial. But would I feel good about sitting at home with my son on a mistrial because a fucking tornado drill? No, Braden's still dead. Would these Darlie supporters be happy to get her out on a technicality? Yep. They sure would. But like I said, I was the one that turned my son in, and I was a witness for the state. I know, hey, KCL, I know how, and you know, they're not lying when Darlie supporters say the judicial system is fucked up. They're not lying. I know how they do things. Like, I'll give you an example. Kelsey was assigned a victim's advocate for the trial. And she sat in the very front with this victim's advocate after her testimony. She was able to sit in the front, and they see her sitting with this victim's advocate, and she's kind of hugging on her and making sure she's okay, and patting her hair. And every time Kelsey moved, she went with her. It was presenting that she was in need, and making it look like she was. That she had to have somebody there with her. Well, they all wanted to wear. This is one of the things that they got mad at me about, and I'm all about the law, and that's still my son. But they all wanted to wear blue Justice for Braden shirts in the courtroom, and I knew that is that's not fair to any defendant who is innocent until proven guilty. So we filed a motion that they don't be able to wear that in there, and the judge granted that motion. They found him. It's a first-degree murder charge. That's the only thing. See, they put those other charges, like there's different degrees. Like she said, he was charged with 1 count of murder, which is like a first degree. And then there's another one, which is like involuntary. And then it goes down. They charge him with all of them, right? Just so they get one to stick. That doesn't mean, if you only got one body, you can't have 2 murders. But that's how they do that. And they came to him at first The first time they offered him a deal, they offered him 11 years flat, which would be about the same time as involuntary manslaughter. So he tells me, I go up to jail to see him, and he says, "Well, Dad, they offered me this deal." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Well, they offered me 11 years flat with no paper." I said, "Oh, so that just means you serve 11 years and then you're done." And I said, "You need to take that." And he goes, "I'm not taking that deal." And I said, "You need to take that deal." I said, "Because if they're giving that to you, you should take it, because they know you're guilty, but they just don't want to spend they're trying to give you a break." And he didn't take the deal. So the second time they offered, they always raise it up. If you deny one, and they raise it up. They told him 15 years flat. He turned that down. And then on the third day of the trial, they told him if he just said he was guilty right now, they give him 20 years flat. And he wouldn't do it. So that's how people are, when they don't, 2034. When someone is saying they're not haven't done something, they stick to their story. Yeah, for sure. Now, I hear a lot that Darley's said for 27 years he hasn't done that. Yeah, she's going to stick to her story. He gets parole in 2034. And I don't expect them to... I expect them to flop him for 10 years on the first one, if they let him out at all. He's been in for almost 7 years. And, there's a video on my channel. It's me talking to my son after a year on the phone. And you can see the difference between the Darley case and my case. I'm not in there going, "We're going to get you out. Whatever it takes, we're going to get you out. Fuck that baby. Who cares?" I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And we're not going to have his little sisters up there talking about they're his baby sister and he's innocent. We're not doing that. We accepted it. The court said so. It didn't look like a shitty trial to us. We could have. We had one juror that fell asleep. That had to be woke up a couple times. We had all that little petty shit that they got that has absolutely nothing to do with Luke killed somebody. He ruined his life. And he's lucky he didn't get the death penalty. He ruined his life. He did it. And he's not going to ruin the rest of the family's life by trying to make us believe that he's innocent in there. And get us to give away houses and everything else, trying to get him out of there. Well, we know he fucking did it. That's the difference. So if Sully could get led to this video, I would really like to have her up on panel with me, and we could discuss this case. We can discuss Darley's case. And you want to look at pictures. You want to look at this? Look at these little winning pictures right here. You want to talk about somebody looking rough? Look at this little winning picture right here, Sully. Because this is what it's about to me. Right here. About this picture. Not about a picture of Darley chewing gum, spraying silly string, my son looking like he's all fucked up. The picture that I'm worried about is this picture right here. That's the only one that matters. That's the one that needs to be up on Darley supporter sites. That's the one that needs to be talked about more. That's the one. That's the picture that matters. That one. Anytime. Piece of chicken grease, y'all. Yeah, they sure were. And, she was saying that, Luke could get paroled. It's very possible he could get paroled. I can't help the sentence structure is different in Texas than it is in Ohio. Because does he deserve the death penalty? Yes, he does. Are we fortunate he didn't get it? Yes, we are. Would I want to go see my son die? No, I wouldn't. But I'm not going to try and sell to the public that he's innocent. I'm not selling that. Lock his ass up. Huh? I'm watching. I'm looking at my Facebook now. Yeah, but I really would like to have a one-on-one with this Sully chick. Let me educate her a little bit more on both cases, and I can do it with civility. But I'm gonna tell you what, my case and the sentencing in Ohio and Texas, and the difference between Luke's case has absolutely nothing to do with the Darlie Routier evidence against her. None. None. I mean, they had some shadiness in their family. You know, why would Darren go to Bob Key and ask about breaking into the house? Because Bob Key has been convicted of grand theft. He's a fucking thief. That's why Darren went over there, right? I mean, Darlie Key was in counseling. But see, and then it's the supporters that always want to get really personal. Oh, I'm really good at debate, Christy. When it comes to these true crime cases, I'm really good at it. I don't want to knock my. But if I'm going to be on here talking about a true crime case, if I don't know the facts, I'm gonna be aligned with people that do and will. Like Pam helps me a lot. Even when we weren't, even when we were, I would just ask, "Hey, I can't find this. Can you help me?" And she would. So you got to align yourself with the truth to understand the truth. And I was lined up in support. I was lined up in support, and I didn't want to look at the truth because I just thought Darren did it. And I was like, nope, Darren did it, blah, 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 and I didn't look at it. And you get to a certain point in support where you just can't argue anymore because there's nothing for you to stand on. There's no truth for you to stand on over there. Like I said, if I had my choice, if I had, let's say I got a choice, I could have Braden back and Luke gone, and Braden gets to live the rest of his life. If I have that choice, all I got to do is say the word, and Braden could be back, but Luke would be gone. I'd bring that baby back. He's innocent. He's innocent in all of it. Well, a horrible person. Darla Key has been pretty nasty to people over the years, and I kind of get it. But at the same time, if you're going to be that nasty, you got to take it back. She told somebody that she wouldn't feed them a bag of crap. And I was like, you keep bags of crap around to feed people? But we used to joke, and I'm going to be the butt of people's jokes too. Because people seem to think that, I know that Donnell and Darlie Key and all them didn't have anything to do with them murders, and they didn't want them babies to be gone. I know that they didn't have anything to do with Darlie's decision. Well, Christy, and you're right, Christy. I know about the awful to the staff because she's always filing grievances in the prison. It's death row. Yeah, the toilet paper's going to be a little rough for your tushy, but at least you get to wipe your ass. But see, supporters always do this. And I knew that when I was jumping back in this, when I saw Donnell and I said, okay, I'm going to come back and do this, I knew it wouldn't be long before somebody said, oh, what about his son? As if I tried to hide that shit. I didn't do it. It's a true crime case. And when that trial was going on, I handled it like any other true crime case that I've done. I put up all the information I could, every document, everything I could. The only difference is it's my son, and I love him. Don't love what he did. He knows I think he's a piece of shit for that, but I still love him. Somebody asked me one time, why did your son do that? I said, because he's fucking ignorant. Now, why did Darlie do that? Why did Darlie do that? Do I have anything to do with him being ignorant? And she wanted to speak a little bit about, where we asked that Luke not be sent to the same prison as Daryl Ferguson, which is Braden's daddy. Daryl Ferguson snuck up behind one of our friends and hit him in the temple from behind, and then flipped him over on his neck. And Kelsey covered for him. Braden's mom. Kelsey covered for him. My son has never covered for anybody in a murder case anywhere before, ever. But Luke knew Daryl anyway. Luke had already beat him up a couple times. We just didn't want him to go in there because it wouldn't be Daryl that he had to fool with. Daryl's already been in there for 7 or 8 years, so Luke comes into his prison. It wouldn't be Daryl that he'd have to worry about. It'd be Daryl and all of Daryl's buddies. So you protect your children. You know, no matter what they do, you protect your children. You don't wrap them up real tight in a blanket until they turn blue. You protect your children. That's what you do, and I'm going to continue to protect them. Yeah, Christy. One day I do. One day I do. I can't. I'm gonna go to bed. Maybe sometime tomorrow. I'd like to get you up on panel and talk about your experience with her in Kerrville. I was also hoping to be able to get Carrie Paris to speak to me. I did stick up for her a little bit today. Yeah, they've been divorced since 2011. I really want to talk to Carrie Paris, and I know, but I did stick up for her today. If you guys watch Rich's chat, just a little bit. You know, they were talking about what a hateful, nasty person she was, and she just doesn't seem. Can you imagine that you get pulled from your life, right? You get this letter that says you're up for jury, and you got to go and be selected to learn about and see the murder of 2 children. Can you imagine that? I'd like to pick her brain. And people are saying that Carrie said, well, I don't have breast augmentation. Breast augmentations don't make Darlie a killer. I don't know why Greg Davis went that way, but that doesn't make her a killer. Hi, Mander, because Darlie's little sister, Danelle, is on TikTok sticking up for her sister, and she's getting a lot of things wrong, and we're able to do this in a better way now, because I'm not gonna let this consume me, and I'm not gonna let people get at me like I did before. But I've always been very passionate about the Darlie case, and I've never really put it down, Manderlin. It's just there hasn't been much going on with it. We're waiting on the Innocence Project of New York to back out, like they will. We already got a taste of how we know they're going to back out is when Danelle said they wanted me to ask the public if they had any leads. So we're just waiting on them to back out, and then maybe I think it'll go into the federal, and the federal will be real quick, and you know, like I said, it just hasn't been much going on. It's good to see you, Mandolin. But anyways, I need to get up and stretch. Yeah, Christy, I'll get a hold of you about going. I really do want to do that. I'm holding out for Carrie Paris, but I understand her being standoffish. I know how the supporters can be. I know about her putting her name out there. I know what they did to Ryan Kester, so I know how they can be. So, yeah, it's good to see you, man. I'm glad you guys are happy over there. I gotta get up off of here. I gotta stretch out. I can't sit for too long. This epidural's not working. Nary quite Terry. Yeah. Oh, I've seen you forever. No, see, the thing of it is as far as me saying, you know, I know that's a baby. I mean, Braden is a baby. And I wouldn't even want a technicality to get him out. I really wouldn't want a technicality to get him out. You know, they were talking about since Braden was still alive, they were talking about since the decision was made that Kelsey and Daryl decided to pull the plug, not knowing what kind of they assumed that if he lived, he'd be paralyzed or something, but they never really. So they decided to pull the plug, and we were actually contacted about who actually caused his death, and that was a few months ago, and I'm not interested. I'm not interested in that. Good night, y'all. Piece of chicken grease. Oh, my back.